I'd like to just kind of curious because if you could talk a little bit about if you use third-party management, and then kind of what you looked for when you guys were kind of getting going.
In the beginning, we started out with pretty simply by just going to the Chamber of Commerce and looking for the top 10 property managers in Austin and San Antonio, and then really just going out to the top two or three, and just doing interviews, right? And we found a couple of we found a smaller firm that had good ratings in the Chamber of Commerce, and we interviewed that particular company. Ultimately, that company was only about 7,000 or 8,000 units big, and we didn't want the Grey Stars of the world. We wanted something a little bit more nimble. But we're not with that company anymore because we got to a space where we were their biggest client, and we needed. I've got this analogy. You can have a 1980s, Toyota Datsun that can get you from point A to point B, but we got to a point where we needed the BMW with seat warmers. You know what I mean? Like, we needed a little bit extra in terms of the back of house professionalism. We needed a company that had good pulling force to attract the right type of talent, and that really comes down to business culture. So for us, it was obviously the competency of property managers, but our first property management team we ultimately ended up firing and had to pivot to another team that was the BMW with seat warmers, because they were attracting the better talent, and through that better talent, what makes or breaks a deal is your property managers and what bum is in the seat in the office day in, day out. And so for us, it was really going and backing a more expensive firm, but a firm we knew could attract the right type of talent in order for our portfolio to be successful. So when you are looking for property management teams, don't just go with the one that's the cheapest. Go with something that as you grow as an investor, as a syndicator, that they can grow with you. And some of their the original company we went with, their back of house office was not up to scratch in terms of supporting us in our growth. And that's why we ultimately changed to who we use today, which is Roscoe Property Management.
Awesome. Yeah, we got one more question for you, and then we'll get into all the general Q&A. I know you've touched on a little bit about this, but what tips do you have for somebody just getting started for the 0 to 1? What would you say to those people?
I think you got to be confident in yourself. So, I wouldn't encourage you to go out and just start raising money from investors when you don't have a track record. Any track record, that is, right? Like, track record is hard to build. Going back to my first triplex, and that first triplex got me into the second deal, and that second deal got me into the third deal. So I was able to prove to myself that I could do this. And through then getting a mentor and then applying the same strategies I was doing on the smaller stuff to just the larger stuff, and then creating content around that and creating a brand, that was ultimately what helped me scale. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't just an overnight quote unquote success. I've been going at this for nearly over a decade. There's been a lot of times when I've, because I'm a foreigner, I needed to keep the full-time job before I could break out into being my own boss. So for those people who are relatively new, I encourage you to go out and do a couple of deals by yourself in order to prove it, to give you that confidence to say that, yeah, I have done this before. Because when you start approaching investors for money, they're going to ask you those questions. Have you done a deal? Have you done any deals, right? And if you can't point to something, those conversations become a lot harder. So, and it's that sort of mindset when you do a first deal by yourself, and that could be a single family or a triplex. You have there's that grain of that seed that is planted to say, I can do this, and the confidence then grows as you start doing more and more deals and you start to push the boundaries. So really, yeah, I encourage people to try and do it on their own to start with, maybe with a brother or sister or siblings or close families. You may be able to combine some money a little bit and buy something slightly larger. But ultimately, you want to know that you can do it on your own first before you go out and start raising capital from other people.